Hi, I'm Brad Hanna, and I have a presentation for racial profiling by police. I have some quick definitions. Racial profiling, cognitive bias, racial prejudice. Racial profiling is any time a police officer or someone in authority targets a specific person based solely on their race or ethnic background. Cognitive bias is any time you have a stereotype or a favoritism towards a high status group or person. And racial prejudice is just any time there is a bias going towards a certain type of person or a certain group of people. Stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is a procedure where a police officer stops someone on the street and pats them down, make sure they don't have, make sure they're not armed and dangerous for themselves and the community. Stop and frisk is actually something that's been more relevant in New York City in recent years, and because of this, there's been questions that are brought up regarding whether or not the NYPD is racist and or racially profiling its citizens. I have data to support the claim that the NYPD is actually stopping more minorities than they are white or Caucasian people. This was a study conducted from January 2016 to June 2016, and out of 7,636 people, 77% of them all were completely innocent, and 83% of the population of people who were stopped and searched by police, they were of a minority, and only 11% were actually Caucasians. Terry v. Ohio was in 1968. This was a court case that dealt with the Fourth Amendment, which is the prohibition on unreasonable searches and seizures. In this case, the Supreme Court voted that the Fourth Amendment was not violated. Usually for searches and seizures, probable cause is needed, but in this case, Terry v. Ohio, it was ruled that reasonable suspicion was the lowest degree that a police officer needed to legally search and seize a person. United States v. Brignoni-Ponce happened in 1975. The Supreme Court ruled against the law enforcement and stated that the Fourth Amendment was violated. So this is the exact opposite of Terry v. Ohio. They acknowledged that the Fourth Amendment was indeed violated because the reasonable suspicion was only because a vehicle and its occupants were of Mexican descent, and they believed that they were possible undocumented drug smugglers. And in this case, it was not justifiable by itself that was not reasonable suspicion based solely on their ethnic background. Reasons why there's racial profiling by police. There's a brotherhood in the police. Every officer has each other's back. They will go as far as they can to protect one another. And also this kind of ties in with experience, because if a certain police officer has prior experience with someone of a minority, say an African American who was very dangerous and violent, then in the future they are more likely to treat African Americans who remind them of that individual that same way, because that's just one thing they just learn on the job. A couple more reasons is public safety. Obviously, public safety is the number one concern for police officers, so they will try every way they can to protect the public and the community. Also, history and evidence. In certain areas, there's evidence that shows a certain demographic of people commit the majority of crimes. So in that area, police racially profile, and based on someone's ethnic background, they are already more suspicious about them because they are in that area more likely to commit crime. The public's perception of racially profiling by police. This was a study conducted by Reason Magazine that showed 70% of Americans who took the survey disapproved of police racially profiling people to some extent. Strongly disapprove and somewhat disapprove. Combined, there was 70% of people who agreed with those statements that they disapprove the conducting of racially profiling citizens. Warren Tomaskovic Devi did a study in 2009. This showed that while many times minority drivers are pulled over more often than whites, in a lot of cases white drivers actually had more contraband in their vehicles and were actually committing more crimes. So this was kind of completely irrelevant to their actual racially profiling because the whites were actually committing more crime while the minority drivers were being stopped more. They also have some implications and solutions as to how racially profiling can be diminished and can be stopped. They suggest that there should be a supervisor that follows and conducts searches on the police staff and makes sure that all the policies and police procedures are being unbiased and are being more strict. Racial profiling regulations. For agencies such as the FBI, there's actually strict rules against targeting people based on their race, religion, national origin, and gender. But there's stipulation where at airports and border crossings, these rules do not apply. Sometimes there's problems with the data, such as I mentioned before. In certain places, such as New York City, former Mayor Bloomberg actually decided that because African Americans were the ones committing more crime in the city, obviously they were going to be searched more and stopped by police more often than whites or Latinos or any other ethnic background of people. My conclusion for this is that racial profiling by police is real. It happens in large cities. It happens across the country. Also, racial profiling is a very controversial topic. As mentioned before, a lot of Americans do not approve of these methods used by police whatsoever. And there are ways to regulate this and to actually put a stop to the racial profiling of citizens by police. Here are my references, and thank you very much.